as well. Fantastic. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another ASEA Global Expansion Team Zoom. I'm in a Chili's parking lot and on my way to Denver for the Fort Worth Convention coming up this Wednesday. Very excited to see everybody. We've got Ben Tyler, who is ASEA's corporate lawyer, on the line tonight. Ben, thank you. And he's in Fort Worth visiting his son who lives there. So Ben, thanks so much for joining us tonight. Sorry that we were a little bit late, but the focus of tonight's conversation is twofold. Always compliance. We've got to keep ASEA compliant. It's very exciting to have this kind of discovery in our hands, but we have to speak about it in a compliant way. But the other thing I wanted to speak about was, you know, one thing we tell people is that the wonderful thing about this business is you can will it to someone that you love after you're gone, and so that you can actually create a legacy, and so that your business can live on after you're gone. So we're going to talk about that a little bit tonight. So Ben, how's Fort Worth? Is it hot? Can you hear me okay, Ben? Can you hear me, Ben?
It's not as hot as it could be. I have another son that lives. What's that?
There must be a delay.
Yes. It sounds like you're struggling a little bit, but it looks like from the notes that everyone can hear me. In fact, let me know if anyone can't hear me. I probably have a better connection than you do. But yeah, I was visiting my son in Phoenix. I have a son in Phoenix and a son down here in Fort Worth, a daughter in Austin, and it's not as hot as Phoenix. So for those of you who are headed over to Fort Worth for the convention, the weather's not too bad. It's maybe upper 80s, so it's great. And we're excited, obviously, to be able to be here. I'm always excited to come and visit my son. It's my oldest son, and I've got 5 grandkids down here, and I have 3 in Austin. So we've had a great time.
So fun. Well, Ben, listen, let's just dive right into this. So let's talk about legacy. So when you're able to leave your business to someone, so how does that whole process work? What do we have to do to ensure that that happens?
Yes. Great. I'll jump into that. That's a great question. Most of you know, I mean, we talk about your business as an ASEA associate, and it really is a business in the same way that you might have a McDonald's franchise or any other kind of a small business or even a big business that you might have. Most people set up their account with ASEA in their own individual name. They use their tax identification number. Occasionally, someone will set it up as a limited liability company. Sometimes people will set up a co-applicant and think that the co-applicant will automatically inherit the business. That's not the case. A business account or a distributorship, let's call it, with ASEA is something that you can will to somebody else. In fact, if someone does pass away, generally what we will do is not do anything until we get either a will or some sort of a trust agreement or something from the probate court in which you live. I know most of you are not lawyers. And I'll just give you a little bit of free probate law, even though this depends on your state. So I wouldn't be a lawyer if I didn't say, you know, check with your local regulations and check with your state. But generally, it pretty much falls in these same general categories, and it's not rocket science. Most of us have a will. Occasionally, you'll have a trust. A trust is set up so that the trust is self-executing, meaning that once you die, that the assets of your estate will be distributed based on the instructions in the trust. If you've got a will, you have to do what they call probate if it's over a certain amount. And so you have to go to court. Sadly, you have to hire a lawyer, you know, necessary evil. You process that through, the judge will sign off on it, and it will be distributed according to your will. But in either case, you can will this freely. You can put it in a trust just the same way you would any other kind of an asset, such as a house or any other kind of an asset that you have. But again, the flip side is that we in the compliance department can't transfer that over to anybody else unless we get either something from the will, we see a copy of the death certificate, the vast majority of people don't have very large estates or large accounts. It gets a little bit troublesome when you've got a distributorship that's as big as Bo and Cindy's, which is enormous, and there's huge amounts of money. I shouldn't even joke about that, because I'm trying to talk about the compliance department and claims about your income. But the short answer is yes, you can will and transfer your distributorship to your heirs just the same way you would any other kind of a business. But again, I caution you that sometimes you'll think that just having a co-applicant on there will automatically do it, and that's not the case. If you have any questions about how that's done, or if you want to just check things ahead of time, the best thing to do is to contact somebody in the compliance department. If it's a simple matter, usually our compliance staff can handle it. If there's any kind of a question, or if it looks like it's complicated, then that'll eventually make its way to me, and I can help answer that. And that's a good way to just give yourself a little bit of assurance and peace of mind that you're not going to have to worry about that.
Okay, fantastic. Now, so I think that's clear. We have to get it in writing, and by a professional, so that makes sense. So,
well, I don't think you don't necessarily have to have it by a professional. I mean, most people, it's probably better, just because, especially if there's some significant money involved, you want to make sure that it's done properly. But generally, the way that you would handle any other aspects of your estate, whether you have a 401k or a house or those kinds of things.
okay, fantastic. Now, rumor has it that at convention, you're going to be giving a breakout session on compliance. Is that true?
That's true. For 2 days, they actually let me do 2 of them this time. So, and I'm going to have Ryan Bruno, who's the head of the compliance department. He's going to be helping me with one. And Chris Drought, who some of you may know, he's been here. I think he's now the oldest employee other than Tyler Norton. He'll be helping with another one. So yeah, that'll be a fun time.
Okay, so now what we understand is that the general sessions and the recognition will be transferred to the virtual tickets, but the breakout sessions will not be. So will you just give those of us who are going to be there in person, who can attend the breakout session that you're giving, a sneak peek? And for those people who have virtual tickets who will not get to hear what you have to say, can you just give us a general idea, which I know you've done before, about, what's important to remember?
Yeah, that's great. In fact, let me just hit one comment. Somebody said, what's best, a will or a trust, back on the prior conversation. And I'll just close that out just because the question was asked. A will is something that most of us are familiar with. You write out a piece of paper that says, in the event that I die, it goes to this and this and this. A will takes more effort after you die. A trust takes more effort before you die. A trust is kind of a contract that sets up almost a separate entity that manages all of your assets. It's a lot more complicated, but once you die, all the work's been done and it goes pretty smooth. So again, it was a great question. It just depends on whether you want to do the work ahead of time or afterwards. So having said that, let me give you all just a brief summary of what I'm going to present at the convention. And I used to joke with people that I can give you in 5 minutes all the FDA law, or at least 90% of it that you'll need. And in another 5 minutes, I can give you all the stuff about the FTC. What I'm going to talk about is primarily dealing with the United States. In some of the other foreign markets, and it looks like most everyone in here is from the United States. In some of the foreign markets, it's a little more complicated, but there's really 2 aspects of what we call claims, meaning what you can say about the product and what you can say about the opportunity. They're managed by different regulatory agencies. Generally, what you can say about the product is managed by the Food and Drug Administration. I'll start with that one first. The Food and Drug Administration deals with what you can say about a product. And as we all know, drugs, for a long time, I've done this, and I'm going to do it at the convention, but I'll do it for you all now. Picture a blank sheet of paper and draw a vertical line down the center of it. On one side, write sick, and on the other side, write well. If a product claim takes you from being sick to being well, that's what they call a drug claim. The way that the FDA is set up only drugs can make drug claims, no surprise. A drug claim is any kind of a medical claim. It's when a disease claim, those kinds of things. Only approved drugs, meaning pharmaceutical companies that have taken their product through the new drug approval process, can make medical claims. We're obviously not in the medical claim business. We're not in the medicine business. We're in the supplement business. In about 1992, the US Congress passed what they called the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act. It was a great piece of legislation. Most of you probably remember Orrin Hatch. He was a senator from Utah. He was very influential in doing that because Utah has a lot of supplement companies, just like ASEA. And what that did is create a new category of claims. The claims are structure function claims, or claims that affect the structure or the function of the body. So if you go back to my piece of paper, start with the line and go more to the well side. You're not coming from the sick side to the well side. You're going from well to more well, if that makes sense. And that'll give you sort of a work of what a structure function claim is. For example, if I have diabetes, I've got a problem with my blood sugar. It's a medical condition and I take medication for that. If you say, I had diabetes and I took the product and now I'm cured, that's a medical claim or a drug claim, and it's not allowed to be made about a supplement. However, if you say it improved my blood sugar, the FDA has allowed you to say it helps maintain already normal blood sugar. Another example is I had arthritis and I took the product and now I'm cured. That's a drug claim. If I say this product helps my joints, it doesn't necessarily mean that my joints were bad, that I had arthritis. It strengthens my joints. It helps me sleep better. It helps me think better, run better. It affects the structure or the function of my body. Those kinds of things are not drug claims. Now, you can't just make any kind of a statement. You have to have substantiation for it, which is why we spend a lot of time about our products doing research, finding the support from them, those kinds of things. So again, to back up, if you're starting from a position of illness, if you go to the doctor for a medical condition and you're talking about the product treating that and making you well or healing you, chances are you're probably going to be talking about a drug claim. And those are not permitted to be made from dietary supplements. However, if you're talking about helping you sleep better, helping your joints work better, helping your body work better. Now, people who are struggling with medical conditions related to that will get the message. You can make those because I know a lot of you are saying to yourself, well, wait a minute, this really did happen. It's true, and it happened to me. And here's an important distinction to be made. Some people say, well, don't I have a First Amendment right to say these things? I like to give the example. A lot of you remember the old movie, The Fugitive, with Harrison Ford and Tommy Lee Jones. And you remember Harrison Ford's character, was accused of killing his wife and he was innocent. And Tommy Lee Jones was the federal marshal that was chasing him. And they're running through a culvert. And Harrison Ford looks back at Tommy Lee Jones and he says, I didn't kill my wife. And Tommy Lee Jones says, I don't care. Bless their hearts. The FDA doesn't care whether it's true or not, because it's not about truth. The claim is whether it's permitted, whether it's a drug claim. So if you're talking about a claim that will take you from being sick to being well, then that's usually going to be a drug claim. And we can't say that as a dietary supplement. One person talked about, can you help the body fight its own battle? And supports is a great word. A lot of times we talk about strengthen the immune system. And as much as I talk in general terms, of course, we can get into some of the more specific things. There are times where, and there are a lot of people, it's what I call calibrating. You get down in some of the exact details, and the closer you get to talking about the body curing or healing itself, it's kind of a struggle. But a lot of times I'll talk about the speed limit. Most of us know that if the speed limit's 75, you can probably drive 80 or 85. If you drive 95, you're going to get in trouble. If you're not mentioning diseases specifically, but you're talking about how it helps the body function better, including strengthens the immune system, then those are things that you're probably going to be okay. But there are certain words that you should never lose, like COVID or cancer, if you're mentioning diseases. And let me tell you why. I doubt that the FTA or that there's anybody from a regulatory agency that's on this call or that's going to be monitoring your conversations. Generally, though, they're searching the internet, and there's some pretty sophisticated algorithms that will search the internet. So they look for claims, and a lot of times the FDA will focus, of course, on COVID claims. Famously, I remember Ebola was a claim that kind of focused years ago, and a lot of the companies that I know got caught up in that. So particularly when they're on the internet and we're talking about disease claims, those are going to be a problem. But as long as you're moving over to that side on the well side and you're talking about helping the body function better, strengthen better, then that's much more in a safe space. Now, again, let me shift a little bit to talk about the Federal Trade Commission, FTC. 10 points for Gryffindor, if anybody know about the FTC, and hopefully not from personal experience. The FTC is really the enforcement arm of all advertising. The FTC's main function is to make sure that advertising is truthful and not misleading. Now, remember, truthful, yeah, you get benefits for having it be true, but if you're not allowed to say that, then it may be misleading. And so the FTC is going to be focusing on that. A lot of times, the FDA will send a case over the FTC. The FTC's real focus is on income claims. And bless their hearts, they don't like network marketing very much. The thing about the FTC that they focus on with income claims is claims that you can, and this has happened in the last 5 years or so. I've been doing network marketing companies and working as a lawyer for network marketing companies for about 25 years. In my past lives, generally, if you said that you make money on the sale of a product, you're fine. And as long as you didn't show a copy of your check, you were also fine. Now, however, the FTC has kind of focused on the fact that very few people make big money in network marketing. And they've kind of shifted to the emphasis that it's, for most of us, and this is true, for most of us, it's more of a side gig. You're making extra money on the side. There are some people that do this full time, but the percentage is very, very small. It's kind of like those, have you ever seen those weight loss products where you see somebody who's lost 100 pounds in a year? Not a lot of people do that. And you'll see a lot of fine print down at the bottom. The thing that the FTC is focused on now, I mean, the sort of the COVID and the cancer words on the business opportunity is financial freedom. If you put financial freedom in an advertisement, the FTC is going to tag you, because financial freedom implies that I never have to work again, that I can quit my job, that I can go buy a house in the Bahamas, that I can, and again, it's, some people actually do that, but it's a very small percentage. So, by the way, to those of you who are not going to be at the convention, we've created a little handout that talks about both these things. It's two sides. One side is the product claims, and the other side is the income claims, about things to avoid. Replace your boss. Anything that implies that you're going to do this full time, or that you can make a full-time income with this, even though it's true, the FTC says that's misleading, because very few people actually do that. Most of us are making an extra few $100s a month, sometimes 1,000, a couple of thousand, but it's not very common. And so that's why, and hopefully, I apologize if any of you have ever got a letter from compliance asking you to take something down or to change something. That's why. So I have talked for quite a while, and sometimes I get bored even hearing myself talk. Are there any other questions or clarifications for those? I know that was kind of a high-level summary, but the one thing that it did do, I hope, is at least make you aware of some of these issues. It's not rocket science, as much as we like to think that we spend a lot of time doing this. There's some basic principles that you can explain to the other members of your team, and that kind of give you a good general way of talking about both the product and the opportunity.
So what if somebody's talking about redox and not specifically about a certain product that ASEA sells?
Yeah, that's a good question. And this is a little more technical from a legal perspective. People say, well, what about the First Amendment? Don't I have a First Amendment right? You do have First Amendment rights. And political speech, of course, and educational speech, those rights are very broad. Once you get into business speech, those rights become more narrow. And you can tell that it's business speech when you start talking about trademarks. Trademarks are what we use in trade. So if you're talking about ASEA, come learn about, you can say, for example, come learn about how redox can transform your life, cure disease, all those kinds of things. The moment you mention a trademark, like ASEA, or you say, ask me how to buy, then it becomes business speech. So you can talk a lot about redox in a general sense, in an educational sense, but most people are doing that for the purpose of selling product, and rightly so. That's our business. You could refer someone to links about redox, and there is a lot of research about redox that's out there. We all know that redox has been a scientific term, and we've been one of the companies that has sort of brought that term to the fore, at least from a supplement context. But you need to be careful, because a lot of people, well, I'm just teaching people about redox and telling them how to buy our product. And once you do that, I mean, the people that monitor these kinds of things they can do the math and connect the dots as well.
So if you talk about redox and then send a link to your ASEA website, that's not okay.
Yeah, that you've connected the dots, and that's kind of a challenge. At the same time, you can talk when you're talking to people, go online and look about redox, do some research about what redox does. You kind of have to disconnect those two conversations. You can send people a lot of information about redox and then talk to them later as a follow-up and say, hey, by the way, I've got a product that has redox molecules in it. I'd be interested in talking about it. And you can come try some and see if it helps you.
And isn't it true that if you're a consumer of ASEA products, you can say whatever you want to say, but as soon as you're selling ASEA products,
Right.
the rules change. Isn't that true?
Right. And somebody made a very good comment too about the fact that in other markets, particularly Europe and Australia, the word redox is not allowed to be used with the sale of the product, because those are what I mentioned earlier about what we can say about the structure function claims. Other jurisdictions don't have that. Often I will talk about first to market. I think we're probably all, I know our demographic pretty well. Most of us can remember back when Apple came out with a computer without any kind of a floppy disk, nothing. And everybody kind of went, oh, there's no floppy disk, it's too new. And ASEA is kind of in that category. It's a very unique product. In Europe, for example, if you're going to do a supplement, they say, well, what are you supplementing? Redox molecules? Well, there's no real recognized category of redox molecules supplement. And so we're kind of restricted on what we can say. It's an unfortunate thing. In some ways, it's been the most difficult product I've ever worked with in my career. In other ways, it's the best because it's effective and it's safe. I used to tell people, when you're network marketing, there's two things you never want to do. One, don't kill people with your product. Two, don't steal their money. Those are two good rules. You can write those down, by the way. And this product is very safe. The most safe product I've ever worked with in my entire career. I mean, it's effective, it's simple, it's simple as far as the ingredients, very basic. It's brilliant in the way that it's been developed. And we've never had a serious adverse event. And that's really remarkable. I've never worked with a company that's had that. The flip side of that, though, is that most regulatory governments don't really know how to deal with it.
Right.
And we're kind of ahead of our time. And I know that's a challenge, particularly for you who are trying to sell it and wondering why we can't say anything about it. It is the challenge, and that's tough.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we're talking about the business with people, and as long as we're not saying, hey, follow me and you'll make X amount of dollars per week or per month or per year, making income claims, because everybody's paycheck is different and there's no guaranteed paycheck. That's the truth,
That's true.
And even if you get paid, a certain amount one week, that doesn't mean you're going to get the same amount the next week. Right.
Sure.
So it's a floating compensation plan depending on performance.
Right.
Performance depends on how much product is moved through the network, right? So,
exactly.
but if you're describing what we do on a daily basis, and you're describing, the activities that are necessary in order to earn any kind of income, that's okay, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Years ago, I had a rowing machine that I was selling at a yard sale, and my friend came up to me and said, "Hey, rowing machine." I said, "Yeah," and she said, Does it work? I said, no, you have to do the work yourself. And network marketing is like that. People think, oh, I have to sign up people and it'll, no, you work but you sell product and you get income. And you can teach people about the compensation plan. If you do this, you get this. If you get this, you get this. And people literally will do the math and figure out what they can earn if they sell. And as long as it's linked to, based on the sale of product, and you're just talking about what the business opportunity is, most people start, occasionally you'll find someone who's a network marketer from another company. They're going to be bringing their organization. They know what it's like to be a big deal. But for most of us, you start out with, look, you can make extra money by doing this and this and this, and here's how the compensation plan works. And once they get to that point and it starts to work for them, then they'll come back to you and you can have that other conversation about how to really build some wealth.
Right. Fantastic. Well, listen, I'm so glad that we had this conversation. It's pretty straightforward. It's really, tell the truth, under promise, and let the business and the product over deliver.
Yeah.
And don't mess with people's health or people's money. It's just not a place you want to be irresponsible, right?
Yeah. The best thing about the product is it's safe, won't hurt you. Let people try it. You've got some challenges. Well, I know this has done this for me. Why don't you try it?
Yeah.
Best way to build a business.
Absolutely. Well, listen, enjoy the time with your son. Thank you so much for coming on tonight, especially right in front of convention. Really appreciate everything you have to say. And
no, I'm grateful to do it. And any of you who are on the call, and if you happen to come to the convention, be sure to come say hello to me, because nobody else does. And I'll be a sign lawyer. We'll shake hands, please. Come say hi. I'm the compliance department. And
yeah, you're not intimidating. You're actually a very friendly, down-to-earth man, even though you're a lawyer. We won't hold that against you.
I know. Somebody has to do it.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thanks, Ben. Thank you so much. We'll see you in Fort Worth.
Great. Bye-bye.
Bye.